was just going to say, we're delivering hot, fresh garbage, and I'm about to take the first little bit out of the oven, first course of the meal.
Sniff it, smell it, see what it smells like.
Everyone and their mother is talking about tariffs and everything
Sure.
going on, obviously, but it kind of sparked my mind on like what I actually believe as far as like, let's say general economics. Let's just say everyone here's
Oof.
an idiot. Nobody knows
Sure.
what they're talking about, right? Like this is me just saying
Absolutely.
what I think with no, you know what I'm saying? Just like with whatever I've thought over the years. So like people say, oh, they agree or disagree. Nobody listens really, but like we don't care. All right. So especially as it pertains to tariffs, like tariffs is obviously disrupting globalism in a way, right? And that kind of relates to the internet. Would you agree? Where like the internet has had a hard on for being like anti-globalism in many different ways. But wouldn't you agree that that is
That the
like,
general sentiment is anti-globalism?
or even let's not even say that. I'm going off on a dumbass foot. Let's say this. Wouldn't you say that it's been like less counterculture and more mainstream to be like
Mm.
anti-globalism in the last
Yeah, for sure.
whatever, like yeah,
There's
since the
definitely a
first
growing
Trump term.
movement there. Yeah.
Right.
First Trump term, the UK leaving the
So I'm going to
EU.
start with the thing that everyone's going to tar and feather me for, and I don't give a shit because I'm going to sit here and tell you why. So globalism is good, in my opinion,
Oof. Whoa.
because what globalism does, well, hang on, let me go. What globalism does is it allows more human beings in more ways from more markets with more resources to work together to build wealth. You can only build as much wealth as you have as many people and things like producing it, right? And I think it's a fact of life that like you buy your on the smallest scale, which is dumb to do, and call me out if this is bad. But on the smallest scale, you are you and you have no partner. You'll be able to build less wealth in life than if you had a partner that you trusted and mixed finances and did that over X amount of time. Or even like if
Mm.
somehow you had 3 or
Mm.
4 or 10. Right? So like in general, massive in general. And again, dude, I am so stupid, bro. And you know this. But the
Yeah.
people out there, we need to let them know. So best
Sure.
belief, best belief. But
This
in
this
general, the more people you have working together, the more wealth you can build. So it gets more complicated than just I think globalism is good. The reason I think it's good is because it builds as much wealth as possibly could be built, and then you use government as a check to the markets. Globalism goes kind of hand in hand with markets, right? To like make sure basic needs are met, making sure inequality is not getting out of control, taxing rich people to be able to redistribute, to make sure necessities are met. You know, everyone out here, oh, you know, this idiot's a communist. No, we're just taking a baseline of basic necessities, right? You're taxing a little, but you're allowing that wealth to grow. Like I feel like it's social democrat. You ever heard that term? But go ahead. Any thoughts?
I'm familiar. Yeah, I'm
Sure.
familiar.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, globalism in general is a good thing. I do think, especially with a mass information day and age that we live in, to try and be an isolationist is just incredibly hard.
Yeah.
Um,
What that'll
but
even look like is right.
you do have to agree that like a lot of jobs, industrial, of course,
Yes.
jobs have leached out of the United States as a result of globalism.
100%. My answer to that is that the government never did enough to help those people land on their feet better and do better for the people. They just fucking sat on their hands and did Reaganism, which is basically cut taxes for rich people and everyone else. We don't care. And that's not going to, you know what I'm
Trickle
saying?
down.
Like, that's not a good check on, like, two things can be true where the jobs absolutely left, but globalism can still be good if you're running the country in a way that really leads forward on making sure that like the least of us is still economically somewhat viable. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe I'm crazy, but
So, do you believe in tariffs at all?
of course, I think like if you do targeted tariffs on certain things, like there's been over the years through Trump and Biden, then yeah, sure, of course, no doubt. Because there's other things to consider. When I say globalism is like generally good or I believe in it, I just mean that it builds wealth, right? Of course, there's negatives to anything, including globalism. You know, But I'm not even trying to two sides it. I just think that overall there's more pros with it.
Sure.
But even having said all that, I do still think that tariffs can be good in certain ways because it's not all about building wealth. And I believe that. Come on, now healthcare should be Medicare for all. So there's definitely some areas where, like, just because you're building wealth, that doesn't mean it's bringing its best value to society, So it's like, it's tricky because, like, I feel like I'm over talking it too much. I still want to hear what you think more. But because you have to, like, explain yourself when you say you do believe in something, but it's like, why? It's like, this is how you would, in my view, try to make everything work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's smarter ways to do it. For
Do
me,
what?
if he
Wait,
was
do
going
what?
to okay, well, so
From his
the whole
his tariffs are dumb. Go ahead. Yeah.
right, but his rationale is that it's going to bring back manufacturing to the U.S., which there's something to be said for that,
But you need
not the way
government
that he's going
investment too,
about it.
though.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, you
That's the
have
thing.
to encourage those businesses to crop up.
You got
And
it.
the other thing that's dumb, like, okay, so let's take Colombia for example. We slapped a decent chunk of tariffs on Colombia because we buy an absolute fuckload of coffee from them. The
Mhm.
problem with that, though, is the logic kind of falls apart because there is only a certain belt that you can grow coffee in,
No,
and
I know.
it's
There's a coffee
generally
belt.
by
Yep.
the equator, right? So you can't. That is not an industry we're going to spark up in the U.S. because we're tariffing coffee from Colombia. We physically cannot grow it in our climate.
Dude, you're right. But, like, you don't. His tariffs are mad stupid. The idea that trading is like a zero sum game. That alone is so stupid. It's like you
Mm.
go to McDonald's every day. You bought a breakfast sandwich there every day for a year. What did McDonald's buy from you? Oh, they have a huge trade deficit with you. It's like, trading's not a zero sum. You gave it money. They gave you a product. You know what I'm saying? It's like, trading's not a zero sum game. It can be mutually beneficial. So
Mm.
that also makes no sense. But I didn't really want to talk. We can if you want, dude, because there's so many things. I didn't really want to talk about that morons tariffs because I just wanted to think, like, do you believe in markets? How do you feel about, like, free markets and markets in general and competition? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, it's generally a good thing.
Yeah,
If
I
the
agree.
competition is, if there's actually competition.
No, I know,
I mean,
that's
there's a
another
lot
thing.
of places where, like, capitalism builds enough wealth to where they can manipulate political systems to start protecting itself, right? Like, established capital can protect itself. And then at that point, you don't have capitalism, right? You have people who
Yeah.
are just securing their position with the wealth that they have, whatever it is that they're creating. So yeah, I think markets are generally good. You just
Yeah.
need a state that actually regulates it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuance to parse through, but I just meant, like, at a general level, like, because there's so much nuance to parse through, which is
Oh,
what
for sure.
competent leadership would do, but we never seem to have that. So,
Wow.
and then, like, I also
heard it
want to,
here
like,
first.
nobody would ever listen to this, but if they did, and it was like a typical smooth brain on the internet, they would be like, oh, so you're saying you just believe in globalism because of wealth? Like, you don't care about borders? Are you for open borders? No. These people are so dumb. You can say, like, globalism and trade is good for wealth building, but then also have borders and, like, not be nonsense about certain inflow or outflow. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you can do both things. I just get tired of that. I'm sure you agree with that. Like, that's basically what I'm asking you. It's like, what do you feel about that?
Sorry, I was just looking up stats about, right, because you don't have to. Globalism can exist without having open
Yeah,
borders
that's ridiculous.
or without
Right.
having
Yeah, go ahead.
massive movement of populations.
Right.
Those are not inherently the same thing.
Right.
And also, I don't know. I mean, if people are worried, because the worry there is like, oh, we don't want culture to, like, we have American culture and we don't want that to be diluted. But again, a lot of the cultural exchange these days exists on the internet. It doesn't exist in physical
Exactly.
spaces.
I'm just
So,
like, what are these same people live on the internet? Which, by the way, dead internet theory. Like, have fun there, doing nothing and talking to Russians and bots. Like, whatever. But yeah, 100%. It's like, you're really, by the way, I also just go outside here in my Midwest American city that I live in, and it's like, I just want to know what people think, like, big cultural changes. It's just so dumb. It's just so dumb, bro. People do things, they shop, they work. Sometimes they get drunk and pee outside of the toilet because they were drunk, and they go home and go to sleep. And it's like, I don't understand, like, where this, like, other culture is. Whatever. We don't care. We don't care because it's not shit that I subscribe to. So.
Well, it is funny though because so Trump came into office in 2016 and he dropped us out of the TPP, which I believe was the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yeah.
Which was just basically a free trade agreement with a
Again,
bunch of countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I think free trade agreements are good. I just think that the only way that it is good is if you marry it with strong state support to make sure inequality is taken care of and not garbage. You feel me? We're not going to build wealth and exacerbate inequality. That makes no sense. You got to have that check. So that's where, like, again, this whole thing started with I believe in globalism. I'm just going to, like, I'm going to buy a shirt that says that too, because I love just pissing people off.
Don't do that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how many people that would trigger? So many people. I won't do it though. But again, I understand why it triggers people. That's my point. It's like, you have to say that with the fact that I believe in a strong state, strong welfare state that, like, supports basic needs for everyone and makes sure inequality isn't complete garbage. You feel me? Like, I just feel like that's not radical, and I wish it was a thing, but yeah. So anyways, keep going, but TPP, I would have been like, let's do it as long as we have these things covered at home. We do more free trade agreements. Go ahead.
Wow, Bernie was against TPP. How do you feel about that?
I don't hold it against. I love Bernie. I don't hold it against the man at all. I'm not some idiot that thinks, like, oh, the people that I like as politicians are gonna just do no wrong and, like, they're gonna. No, we're normal human beings. I don't think I would agree with him.
Tough.
But here's the thing.
Though,
here's the thing.
Like,
it's not even that I wouldn't agree.
So you
Can I wait 1 second? Let me defend 1 second. I was gonna say I might even vote the same way with him when you vote in reality. Like, we're sitting here talking about what I wish it would be, and then I support globalism. That's why you got to be clear. It's like, in reality, if I was voting for something and we didn't have that strong state and free trade was kind of fucking us, the math as it was, then you would vote that way, right? Go ahead. It's called having a spine and principles. Go ahead.
So you are for free trade?
I am for free trade as long as the state is strong and is supporting.
Yeah, but you could argue that by weakening domestic production, you're going to generate less tax revenue. Therefore, you don't have as much money for sponsoring, like, state programs.
We are wealthier than because of production going up, like, or productivity going up like crazy, continuing since the Industrial Revolution. We're wealthier. We've always been today wealthier than we've ever been yesterday as a world. So it's a bad excuse. Like, I understand where the sentiment comes from as far as, like, the numbers do have to work, dude. I totally agree. I would sit down and I would look at the numbers, and at the end of the day, I would also let the numbers guide me where I'm going to go to. I want to be clear on that. So that's fair. I just think that, like, it's like bullshit to not think about it, to not think about, like, yo, maybe we're wealthier than we've ever been. How do we balance this out? First, just cut. Dude, these people out here, fuck them. They're weak, bro. 50% cut to the defense budget, 75% immediately. I don't give a fuck. And then you're freeing up $750 billion. Not that the deficit's probably higher than that, whatever. But you can do a lot more, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can. By the way, even me, a leftist, supports making government distribution more efficient, meaning, like, we should have as little employees to deliver out the money to people back to them as possible. Like, I agree with that. Nobody says, like, oh, we should have millions and bajillions of fucking federal workers, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, like, all of these ideas that you can even feel like are a little right, I agree with in the right context, where it's saying we're still making benefit payments, if not expanding them, with less employees, and we're making that work. That's what you should do. because you should be taking tax money and redistributing it as efficiently as possible. That's a fact, bro. So, I just always got to be clear about all this stuff. Sorry, I ramble.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that most people would support that sentiment too.
Right? But then they get all caught up in fucking like the simplicities of like being in an echo chamber, you know, whatever one you're in. And it's tricky because I sit in one too. We all do. You just got to try your best. You know what I'm saying? You got to try your best.
Try your best. All right.
I rambled a little bit, so why don't you give me like what you think Trump's endgame is with these tariffs, or if you don't have no idea.
I'm not sure. I do think there's a couple things here because I've seen some speculation that he wants to raise enough money with these tariffs to offset some tax plan that they want to pass later this summer.
So stupid.
I've seen other ideas that he just saw how much the tariffs from China generated in his first term. So, like, to him, it was just a big surplus on the balance sheet. I also don't know if I still don't know if he understands whether or not the American people are paying tariffs. I think he's coming around to that idea, but I can't tell.
I cannot, for the life of me, believe that's even true. I can't. Even if someone told me, even if Trump himself looked at me and said, I believe that to be true, I would still think he's trolling. Because that's so stupid. Go ahead.
He keeps saying it. He's been saying it till
That's
about
so dumb, though.
2 weeks ago, and only recently has he sort of changed his tone on it a bit.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know why he's convinced that tariffs aren't paid by the American consumer.
Dude.
This came up in the debate with Kamala, actually.
Man.
And he just doubled and tripled down. Like, that's not true. This is not a tax on the American people. And it's like, yeah, that kind of is what it is, though.
He's such a moron. Dude, listen. He looks at the Vietnam trade deficit with the U.S. and he's like, why don't they buy as much from us as we do from them? It's like, dude, it's Vietnam. It's like, what do you mean? Are you saying that you're putting tariffs on countries until they buy as much from us as we do from them? Because in that scenario, we're all fucked. We can buy I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
A lot of clothes.
But like,
a lot of clothes made.
You better cut back because these countries, like, their GDP isn't even close to like even the debt. I don't even. It's so stupid. So stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, the criticism too would be, right? You could never compete with these countries because the wage for labor there is just so cheap. Because the standard of living is just
fine.
Different.
Then sell me a plan that makes sense because this isn't it. This isn't it. And I think that we're and the anti-globalists out there who are gonna tar and feather me. I hope you do. I'm gonna buy that T-shirt. Fuck you. Anyways, they never, I feel like, face the reality of how much globalism and the wealth it's created, and as long as we've enabled it in the way that it is, has just been ingrained in like all of these societies, especially the most the wealthiest one, and just tariffing that. And like we saw what disrupting supply chains does in COVID, like with the inflation that came from it. He's disrupting supply chains. It's like you're disrupting the whole system, and there's going to be consequences to that.
Actually, I'm glad you brought up COVID, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because there is another argument to be made that during COVID, we had a hard time sourcing masks and gloves in this country because we don't make any of it here. And obviously, there's a rush on it.
So,
a lot of it's made in China. They're going to move to protect their own country first. And now we have no supply.
Okay.
There weren't gowns. There weren't enough N95 masks. A lot of that stuff is not produced domestically. Which is a genuine criticism.
Yes, I will respond.
Because in times of crisis, you have to be able to manufacture.
If you diplomacy without your eyes crossed, looking like a goddamn moron, okay, then yes, when times are tightest, you still might go without masks for like a week or two. But if you work together with people and the people who produce things, they probably, with the resources they have manufacturing wise, can produce a surplus, and you try to make that work. Now, is that an answer that's acceptable to people? Probably not to a lot of people, but I don't give a fuck, because what are we talking about here? It's like, oh, the next time a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic comes around, we might not have enough masks. Like, that's not a super high priority. Come on now. Let's not make that out to be some
Yeah, but there's
fucking,
other
like,
times of
oh, like,
crisis.
how many, like, we're going to be a fucking... Okay, but the same people that say this shit won't even take the vaccine. But which we'll put that to the side. I shouldn't even have said that.
Yeah,
I see you.
right.
But I see you.
There's
But I
merits to
see
this
you.
argument.
Yeah, I see you. I just think that, like, how about this? Let me say this. You've depended on a system of globalism that boosts wealth, and your populations even might reflect that now. So you can say, well, we should bring all this manufacturing back here because of what happens if a pandemic happens the next time. Or you can realize that, like, your wealth might be tied to that globalism, or your population, definitely your wealth, but even your population numbers might be tied to that globalism in some way. You're taking pros and cons everywhere. So it's basically is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm fucking rambling, but, like, you're taking pros and cons everywhere. So you might say, like, well, what about the pandemic situation that might happen every once in a while, sometime when my asshole shines on the sun? Okay. But also, what about wealth loss and population loss you might take by shutting down that system? You see what I'm saying? So it's always fun.
I mean, there's more
batting the arguments.
criticisms than that. There's more criticisms than
Yeah,
that.
but we can
that
go
I
back
think
and
are
forth with the
legitimate.
arguments for either, because it's a pros and cons game of whatever. You know what I'm saying? And, like, this kind of reminds me of what I've always thought true leadership is. It's not having an ideology. It's having a way of thinking for, like, what's best for a general, large, even populace in a moment. But that moment can be whatever it is, and it could call for whatever it calls for, you know?
Sure.
But yeah, hit me with another one. Go ahead. Go ahead, anti-globalism crowd. Let's go. Okay, now.
Well, Cyril, how do you feel about
Yeah.
child labor and compelled labor?
That's terrible.
'Cause
100%.
I've got some news
we're
for
not.
you about a lot of these clothing companies coming out
100%,
from.
dude. But here's the thing.
Interesting.
Well, let me say.
Because here's the thing. That's where. Hang on. Let me round that point off, because this is where globalization fails. Is that we in this country have labor laws, but you can enter into a market where not everybody's playing by the same labor law rules, and people can exploit that by going to poor countries and forcing tiny hands to, stitch some shirts together.
I would say back to you, even if we quit the globalist system, do you think those countries would just all of a sudden let those kids go free? Or are we taking advantage of something that is also being perpetrated on these kids by people in their home country as well? And so, like,
there's
if the
an
end game...
incentive. No, because here's the
I
thing.
agree. You're right. I agree. There is an incentive.
Countries.
No, I'm conceding that right away. But go ahead.
Well, it's not, just to be clear, it's not countries that are forcing these children to work, right? It's companies in these countries with those lax labor laws.
I agree with that too. I do.
But there is a motivation to, right? Because now the market's wide open. Oh, we can make goods for the American market. How cheap can we make it? Let's get them kids in here, baby.
I agree with you. I do think that the average American, especially being the wealthiest country in the world, should be willing, as long as we're keeping basic needs met. It gets so tricky because you got to make sure all that shit's done domestically first. But I do think every American should be willing to pay a little bit more for stuff so that we could embargo countries and cut them off if they do shitty things like that, which we don't do right now. And that's wrong. You're right. That's wrong.
Right, because a true meritocracy there is everybody having to compete with the same rules, essentially.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to do that, like, there's a lot of criticism for the EU right now because there is a fuckload of regulation in the EU, which they do a lot of great things with that regulation.
I was going to say,
what it does is it gums up the wheels of progress.
But that's the
it does.
But
so
that's
other
no.
countries,
But hang on. But you act like that's a bug, not a feature. Why do you act like that's a bug, not a feature? Like, they could be building that into their system. I have no idea what their things are, to be clear. But they could be building that. I don't know. I just feel like you're, like, automatically being like, oh, it takes time. But, like, guess what? Just like we're seeing with executive orders that get signed and their fucking asshole bullshit, things should take time. Go ahead.
Yeah, but again, we're looking at this through the lens of a free market. So if the EU has an overly regulated system,
that's fair,
that is very bureaucratic, other countries, they're steaming ahead, right? And they're dealing with the consequences, whatever that they may be. So that's the criticism there.
Yes. Well, it's
In a
not even a
globalist
criticism. Well, hang
society.
on. It's not even a criticism. It's the reality. It's the reality that shit's gonna happen. I just think that it still doesn't raise the bar to being isolationist for me. Like, well, the child thing, the child work thing is fucked up, and I would embargo countries and tell them to kiss my. I don't give a shit, and I would probably lose election because prices would soar, but I don't care. But no, I think there's again, it's a pros and cons thing. Are we We're like you're just shooting the bad up.
Tariff side. I'm getting pulled over the tariff side.
Not the one that Trump's doing. The one that
Trump's doing it in the dumbest way.
Yeah,
possible.
Trump's an absolute moron. Let's be clear about that. Yeah, let's put that to the side.
Yeah,
all right, we said it. We have TDS. We don't care. We're gonna put it to the side. Tariffs can be good. What do you mean you're talking yourself into them? I said that at the beginning. Now you're confusing me. I literally said tariffs can absolutely be good. You just make sense. Make it make sense. Tell me what you're doing. Where the investment is. Where you're protecting jobs so that they're not lost. You know what I'm saying? Like, right.
No, we walk ourselves back into a country where we manufacture everything.
No, that's
completely self-sustaining.
That's still gonna make everything expensive as shit.
It is, but here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Everybody's going to have more jobs, right? So if everything's more expensive, but everybody also makes more wage-wise per capita.
But that's not even true because people.
God bless.
One of Trump's secretaries, because they're all blithering idiots, said on TV once, like, we're going to have Americans now screwing the tiny screws into the iPhones. You're acting like all these jobs want to... Yeah, right, this guy's such a... But you're acting like all these jobs are wanted by Americans. Like, it's not true either. Like, it's way more complicated than that. It's way more complicated than that. And I know you don't believe that we should manufacture everything here because that's insane. But
what if you could
where the line... Go ahead.
Would you be okay with bringing those jobs back if you could guarantee that they would make enough to
Who's going to do them?
Subsidize a certain
Who's going to do the jobs? The shitty manual jobs. Who's going to do that?
Well, let's say they're getting paid $19 an hour. People will do them. $22 an hour.
I don't think you
right?
Well,
your
and I don't. No, I was going to say that you don't.
Now you have a
understand,
higher floor for your wages.
I was going to say you don't understand, but listen, I don't understand either, so I'm not going to disrespect you like that. But I do speculate. No, stop. We're again, everyone. We're stupid.
Get in there.
Anyways, I do think that it's not as easy as bringing all that manufacturing just into the U.S. and it just works, especially at once. Like that's such an influx of jobs. It would crash the job market too. Like it would do so many things. You cannot just snap your fingers. You know what I'm saying? Like, so look, your sentiment of targeted tariffs over time, slow investment to ramp up, bring it back. Of course. Let me see what it is. If it makes sense and it shows me the jobs were like preserving, jobs were growing, like great. But you can't just like snap your fingers and everything's manufactured here. Even if you wanted everything manufactured here, that would take a lifetime. It would take a lifetime and a ton of investment when you're running deficits. So these fucking clowns, they need to get their shit together, meaning they need to start taxing the haves a lot more. Get this deficit, because even a leftist like me and you agree that the deficit's a thing. Why don't you just tax people more? What the fuck are you doing? Like, figure this out. Restructure. No more Department of Defense. All right, whatever. No rambling.
No Department of Defense.
No 1 trillion Department of Defense. 250 billion and figure it out. 250 billion and figure it out. You know where I'm going to take the 750 billion? I'm going to personally, as the president, I'm going to stuff hundreds in my pocket. I'm going to fucking walk to every trailer park in the country. I'm just going to hand out Benjis. Who do you think's going to win the next election? Suck my Anyways.
Wow.
Populism.
So yeah, I don't know what Trump's endgame with this tariffs is. And the interesting thing is, now that the tariffs are so high with China, it does seem like a lot of trade is going to halt between.
There's going to be such ramifications from that. There's going to be huge ramifications from that. We'll wait and see. But because he's being like a little clown about like, oh, now electronics are exempt yesterday. And then today I sent it to you before this. He sent out like, oh, electronics, I don't know. We're kind of walking back if they're exempt. It's like, it's a clown show. So I just think that like even if these and I read an article or I saw something the other day where it's like, oh, tariffs aren't even being collected yet because like they don't have the infrastructure in place. They were firing all those people. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It'll be felt. And if it's a total, even if the tariffs aren't even being collected, like you're treating these countries like garbage. It's basically a total embargo with China. Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is basically. Yeah.
Do you understand? You're a freaking millennial. Picking up every toy we ever grew up with, even now, everything you touch, it's gonna say made in China, brother. So, and then you say, well, sometimes I see made in Vietnam or Thailand. Guess who also got tariffs? Guess who also got 10% across the board? 10% across the board. 10%, you got it. Yes. You got it. Yep. You're about to refute it, and then I said no.
Well, because originally it was like 70% on Vietnam.
I know, because he's an idiot, and the trade deficit
was a lot.
Whatever. Yeah. I think his little chart said, like, doing our own math calculation or whatever it said. It was like, really?
Yeah.
Currency manipulation, etc. I don't even. Yeah.
I do think that he's really shown his ass here, though, because not only did he fuck with the markets, but he immediately walked it all back, and he didn't even get any leverage out of it. All he did was shake faith in the American economy. So I don't know, man. I feel like I don't know if he's gonna try and save face or if he's just gonna drop everything and just call it a victory and hope people forget about it. I don't know. I don't know what kind of cojones he's got.
Nobody knows because he truly believes in the tariffs. Clearly, whatever he thinks of them and however he thinks they work, but they don't work that way. He believes in them.
Yeah,
and like, I just don't know why he would. I don't know why he would walk back. I mean, I guess he has sometimes. Dude, who knows? All right, whatever.
Everybody was screaming in his ear. Everybody around him that has a lot of money was screaming in his ear
it was the
to
bond
pull these
market,
tariffs back.
Which the bond market matters, dude. If U.S. Treasuries yield spike.
Yeah, but he had rich people visiting the White House to basically pull his ear and be like, "Listen, this ain't it, boss."
I agree with you, but also economists were also doing the same thing. Whoever's around him, whoever is, because bond markets were actually crashing. And when bond markets crash, that's bad news. That's way worse than the stock market crashing. That's super bad
100%.
news. The value of the dollar was crashing the other day. I haven't looked at it since Friday, but these things matter, man. And more so than the average person realizes. It's, they like to like clown on the stock market because it's, something most people know. But yeah, bond markets, not good.
Not good. Still not doing great.
It's still not doing great. I know. It's tough. Yeah.
Look at that.
I feel if these tariffs on China stay for at least a couple months, there's going to be some real pain that's going to happen in this country. And I don't know. Well, I do know. When you topple over, there's always a set of dominoes, right? And if the first one that you push over falls slow enough, doesn't really bump the next one, maybe the next one falls slower, and it stops, you're good. But if you do too many things and you crash things so hard, disrupt supply chains, like crush credit lines, like make owing debt
make
way
borrowing
more expensive.
Very expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All these dominoes start falling.
Absolutely.
Now, is it a little conspiracy? I admit it is. I just think it's not so conspiracy in a world where you have an embargo on China. That's what it is, dude. You have an embargo, which is crazy, dude. That's crazy. So, anyways, we hope it works out for the U.S. We know it won't. That's kind of what we do around here. It's kind of what we do around here.
Sure.